Right, so today I wanted to start by talking about an article out of the Post Millennial, and it's titled Premier Kenny Urged to Ignore Fear-Mongering Doctors Calling for More Lockdown Measures. And it starts by saying the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, JCCF, is calling on Alberta Premier Jason Kenney to disregard a November 9th letter from doctors demanding further lockdown restrictions. The JCCF said in the press release these lockdown measures violate the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms by restricting people's ability to move, travel, associate, assemble, and worship. The November 9th letter speaks about a growth in cases. The letter fails to mention deaths peaked in April and May, but they have declined and remained low. John Carpe, a lawyer and president of the JCCF, said that in the press release, the AHS is clear there is no second wave of deaths. He said ignoring this data is fear mongering. Doctors said in the letter hospitalization and ICU admissions are at an all time high. These doctors failed to mention that on November 9th, AHS said 207 people were hospitalized and 43 of them were in the ICU. And there are 8,515 hospital beds in Alberta. Um, I'm not going to get into the whole article here. They basically to go on to point out, negative consequences of the lockdown, and they tell you what the restrictions are, and basically going over that. But again, in a nutshell, yeah, it is absolutely fear mongering at this point to be calling for more lockdowns because there's no need for them. There's no need for them. And even if you do think that there is for a need for them, there's no evidence they work. Like there's no evidence, there's no clear evidence at all that the lockdowns reduce cases. Now again, is there some places that have locked down and had a reduction in cases? Yeah, but we've done it in Canada and nowhere in Canada has it worked. Nowhere in Canada has it worked. And on the flip side, there's plenty of places that haven't locked down and have been perfectly fine. You have Sweden, you have, Florida and Georgia that opened like I think one of them even opened in April and one of them in May. They were both fine. You had South Dakota never locked down again. So there's plenty of examples of areas that didn't lock down that didn't have any issues. I think the evidence is very clear. Um, that lockdowns have next to no effect, if any effect, on the spread. And that's something that, again, whenever you bring this kind of stuff up to people, it's always, oh, hindsight's 2020. Well, no, it isn't. If someone criticizes us because we locked down in March and April, yeah, that then maybe hindsight's 2020. But at this point, it isn't. It isn't because we have had people that have been making doomsday predictions going back to since basically we locked down the first time. We've been having people making these doomsday predictions and none of them have came true. In fact, the opposite usually has came true, and that like I say, the opposite usually comes true, right? So if we are 8 months into this or whatever it is now, and none of these doomsday we're all going to die, hospitals are going to be overwhelmed, or think if none of it has came true, like what makes you think it's going to happen this time around? We've been at it for almost a year. Like again, like the cognitive dissonance and just pure ignorance and it's just calling these people ideologues is too respectful to ideologues. Like, yeah, is this whole situation a threat to some degree? Yeah, but it's not something that we need to be even considering locking down for. And this is the problem too, that you can never get it through these people's thick skulls, is that the downsides towards locking down is going to be far more than the downsides to not locking down, right? The downsides to not locking down is maybe, right? Because we don't even know for sure. It is possibly a slight reduction in the cases, right? That is the upside, right? We maybe we maybe save a handful of lives, but on the flip side, we're going to lose those lives anyways. And not only that, we're considering the lives of younger people compared to the lives of older people. Like I don't know how you can argue in good faith that the life of the life of an old person is worth more than the life of someone who's young, right? And the reason why people get away with these mental gymnastics is that the negative consequences of the lockdowns are probably, at least the worst parts of them, they're not going to be felt in the here and now, right? Like destroying an economy, it may take a year or two, or maybe upwards of 5 or 10, for all we know, for the worst consequences of that to come to pass, right? It's going to take a while. Like people think that things are bad out there right now. Like if we keep if we keep going the way we're going, it's only going to get worse. And this is the thing too that I really can't stand about these people. And this is the big problem too, is that people are just doubling down, right? Like on both sides, and it's for the simple reason that on one side we have people who just don't want to admit they're wrong, right? Like the pro lockdown, doomsday crowd. They've been wrong about everything, right? They've been wrong, completely wrong about everything, and the evidence is very clear on that. And because they don't want to admit that, right? Because they don't want to admit that, they just want to keep doubling down. And on the flip side, the people that don't want these lockdowns, they just keep doubling. Sorry, they just keep doubling down because they see the other side keeps doubling down. This is why this is getting so polarized. And I think the clear solution is that we have to start to try to do things differently. Right, and this is another big problem that I talk to the average, more apolitical people that don't really care, or maybe they care but they don't care that much, is that in their minds they think that this is just going to be a temporary thing, right? Like even though we're 8 months into it and there's no sign of it being over anytime soon, that for whatever reason they think, oh, it's just going to be another, or maybe to the end of winter. Like end of winter is literally the best case scenario at this point. My guess is that this is probably going to go on for, I don't even want to guess how long because it's scary just to think about. But it's something that people really need to realize, is that this isn't a temporary thing. This is going to be with us for a long time in, until people wake up. So anyway, the next thing, again from Paul Hinman, speaking of hospitals and being overwhelmed and all this kind of stuff, with 106 hospitals and 8,515 acute care beds, Alberta is well positioned to handle our 217 virus-related patients, including 46 who are in the ICU again. Um, so I guess the first thing to point out too with people that people would bring up is that, oh, they would say, okay, if we're nowhere near capacity, then why are these doctors so paranoid? Um, well, I think the first reason for that's very obvious. Number one is the mainstream media, right? Like a lot of these people, again, they may be experts in the medical field, but again, if the TV is telling them that they need to be paranoid, they're going to be paranoid, right? So again, that's the first one. And the second one is power too. Like a lot of these people. I mean, look at Tam and all these kind of people that they've been wrong about pretty much everything. Like anyone who still thinks Tam has any credibility is absolutely insane. Like I always bring it up too that I would have made better recommend seriously, because you can actually look back and actually figure this out. Like I literally would have made better recommendations than Teresa Tam did, and I have no medical expertise whatsoever. So again, anybody who still gives these people credibility, it's like, at what point if you haven't lost faith in these people, at what point do you? If they've been wrong about things for 8 months now, a lot of these people upwards of a year. Seriously, I'd really like to know. And this is the thing, for all the people that still support the lockdowns, that still support these people, I'd really like to know, like, at what point do you lose faith in these people? Like, they've been wrong about everything up until this point. At what point do you lose faith in them? I really don't get it. Like, they were wrong off the start, and they completely changed their mind to a position that was wrong. It's not even as if they changed their mind to a position that was right. Off the start, it was, don't take it too seriously, don't wear masks, go ahead, gather as much as you want, right? When it actually appeared like this virus was a threat, and then when the death rate was shown to be, comparable to the flu, and you really have nothing to worry about at all unless you're really old or you have serious medical conditions, then it was, oh yeah, it's going to be doomsday, right? You got to wear your mask 24/7, and you can never see your grandparents again, and all this just fear mongering, tinfoil hat wearing garbage. Like it's just insanity. Like I don't understand how people still give these people credibility. Like I really don't. And again, on the flip side, you have the paranoid delusional Karens that again, if you look through Hinshaw's, for example, her Twitter comments, you'll have people that'll be saying, "Oh yeah, you have no credibility anymore." But what they're the reason that they're saying that is that they think that these people have no credibility because they're not calling for complete lockdowns, like literally forcing literally everyone, unless your job is like a cop or a doctor or something like that, you literally have to stay home, right? Like that's why these people think that they have no credibility. Like the sheer ignorance of these people is, it really knows no bounds. It really knows no bounds. So anyway, a next thing to bring up here is from Luke Rudowski. And he links to a article here from the World Food Program. It's a UN site, I think, uh, and it says new report shows hunger due to sore as virus obliterates lives and livelihoods. Now again, you have a lot of these people here in like Canada and the States that are talking about, oh, we got to lock down because we got to save lives, but they're completely ignoring that. I mean, you take this example here. Let's read this article. The number of acute food insecure people in these at-risk countries could increase from an estimated 149 million pre-pandemic to 270 million post-pandemic. Again, so that number's gone up by 121 million people. 121 million people. Um, More are going to be falling into extreme poverty because of this. And look at this number. Look at this number too. Um, Recent estimates also suggest that up to 6,000 children could die every day from preventable causes over the next 6 months as a result of the pandemic related disruptions to essential health and nutrition services. Again, 6,000 kids a day. Is that more than the than the handful of people that are dying in Canada and the States every year? Again, the vast majority of them are people who are very old or who have a very serious medical conditions. Right? Like, is that a little more? Do these people's lives not matter? I guess not, right? I guess not. And again, like a better point that I would, or sorry, something that I would like to point out here is that I don't believe that the people who support lockdowns want these people to die, right? I don't believe that. The reason that they want the lockdowns is that it's a political thing, right? The real reason is that it's a political thing and it's an emotional thing, right? These people don't think logically, they don't think critically. It's entirely an emotional thing. So that's just just the last thing I wanted to point out. And the last story, again, is something that I brought up a lot before, but it's something that it definitely should be done. And this is from Astrid K on Twitter, and they say, at this point, every single MP, MLA, mayor, or councillor should be forced to take a one-third pay cut. If you want to play with the livelihoods of citizens, you deserve to suffer as well. Now, again, what the number should be, I really don't know. I think it should be comparable to how much the economy has contracted, right? Um, so again, the one thing I do know though is every one of these politicians should be taking a pay cut, right? Every single one of them, because again, if the average person is going to suffer, then they should have to suffer, right? Like all of these people who work in the public sector that have, guaranteed incomes and even, guaranteed increases in incomes every year, they should have to suffer as well. Again, like these teachers and, healthcare workers, I mean, healthcare workers to a lesser degree, um, who are griping and complaining about uh, you know, their lives being harder. Well, yeah, everybody is, right? Like the only difference is that teachers and these kind of these public sector workers are so used to things being so easy, right? Like they basically just, show up, put in your day and you get paid no matter what. You get your 3 months off every year. Like and again too, like it's not that every one of these people is like that. I understand there's exceptions to the rule, but again, like the one way you know that the one way that you know that these public sector workers aren't worth as much as they're getting paid, especially when you include the benefits, is that they're so afraid of private competition, right? Like if they genuinely believed that they were worth as much as they were getting paid, they would be fine with private competition, right? But they're deathly afraid of private competition. Why? Because they know that the private competition would probably be able to outcompete them. In other words, they don't themselves even believe they're worth as much as they're getting paid. So again, absolutely, these people should get pay cuts. Is it going to happen though? Nope, of course it's not going to happen. So that's just how things are these days. And until more people wake up, that's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be, and it's only going to drive more division. It's only going to drive more distrust, and it's not really gonna work out great in the end for most people. Um, but again, like I say, more people need to wake up if we want to change this stuff. So, anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links that are in the description. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. But like I always say, any support is very much appreciated. Um, yeah,